what an opening line, right? It's just stunning. And honestly, it's the key that unlocks this entire incredible story we're diving into today.
So, yeah, we're going to be unpacking the absolutely extraordinary journey of a young woman named Beatrice. This is the House of Appetite, and it's all about the transformation of, you guessed it, a butcher's daughter.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off on Mulberry Street, and her whole world, it's defined by this really visceral, almost sacred space, her parents' butcher shop. And this is where Beatrice learns her very first and probably most important lesson of all.
You've got these two totally opposing forces shaping who Beatrice is. On one hand, you have her father. His hands are all about the practical stuff, right? He cuts, he transforms these carcasses into commerce. He basically communicates through the meat. But then you have her mother's mind, and she saw something completely different. For her, all that flesh was a narrative. She could literally read the story of a life in the muscle and fat. She understood that truth itself is just a story that needs to be interpreted.
So Beatrice is kind of trapped between these two worlds, right? The practical and the poetic. And where does she find her escape? Not in the shop, no way, she finds it in the library. And this is a huge turning point in her young life. She's reading authors like Ovid, and she stumbles upon a totally different kind of text, one that starts whispering this really radical idea to her. What if flesh isn't fixed? What if a girl could become something else? Like a tree, a spider, or even a star? So fast forward a few years, Beatrice is, well, she's stuck. It feels like nothing's ever going to change. That is, until he shows up. A mysterious traveling magician. A guy who calls himself Professor Dorian Strange. And he brings with him an invitation. An invitation to just disappear.
And here's the thing. The professor doesn't just call for a random volunteer from the audience. No, he leans in right up to Beatrice and asks her this question that just cuts right to the core of her soul. It's the question she's been waiting her entire life to answer. Do you want to disappear? And you have to understand, this is not about some cheap magic trick. This is a real, genuine offer. An escape.
So what happens inside that cabinet? It's way more than just smoke and mirrors. The whole act of disappearing is this really profound three-step process. First, you have to embrace the darkness inside that velvet-lined box. Then, and this is the wild part, you literally feel the fiction of yourself, your identity, just come apart. And finally, out of that complete dissolution, you awaken to a brand new reality. It's a total deconstruction and then a rebirth.
And when Beatrice steps out of that cabinet, everything has changed. It's like a light bulb finally goes off. She gets it. She understands what her mother was talking about all those years ago. That lesson, all flesh is text, it was never about the pork chops on the butcher's block. It was about her own body, her own potential. Her mother wanted her to learn how to read herself.
And that realization, that's where her real education starts. Professor Strange, he takes her on as his apprentice. He's going to teach her how to go from just interpreting the text of flesh to actively rewriting it. She's about to learn the actual grammar of her own body.
Her training is intense. It follows this really strict timeline. For the first few weeks, it's all about the basics, mastering her breath, mapping out the inner territory of her own body. Then, for months, she starts to learn how to use her perception to actually change physical reality. We're talking small stuff at first, like changing her eye color or making her fingers a little longer. But this is all building up to the final exam, the ultimate test on the equinox, a complete, total transformation into another form.
So what does she become? What's that first form? A wolf. And the way it's described is just perfect. It's these two conflicting things at once. It was pain. It was a homecoming. Can you imagine that? It perfectly captures that feeling, absolutely terrifying, but at the same time profoundly, deeply right. It's her, finally inhabiting her true self.
Okay, so after this absolutely monumental event, her whole world just blows wide open. First, Professor Strange, he's gone. He says his work as her shepherd is complete and just vanishes. Then, her father drops a bombshell, a huge secret. Her mother, she was a changer too. He gives Beatrice this wolf's tooth ring, a family heirloom, and suddenly she understands. She isn't some freak of nature, some anomaly. She's part of an ancient, hidden lineage.
So, Beatrice's journey is shifting gears now. It's moving from this very personal discovery into a much wider world. And with that world comes some very complex politics. She's about to step into the Council of Beasts.
So what's this society actually look like?
Well, wolves, like Beatrice, they're the most common. They make up about 40% of the population. But, and this is a big but, they are far from alone. This society is incredibly diverse. You've got birds like hawks and ravens, bears and foxes, even serpents and seals and rats. The whole animal kingdom is pretty much represented.
So what's the driving force behind all of this? What makes them tick? It's this core concept they call the hunger. And no, this isn't about a physical need for food. It's deeper. It's this profound, driving hunger for authenticity, for wholeness. It's the engine that literally compels them to transform. And if they don't feed that hunger, if they don't change, it consumes them from the inside out.
So now her advanced education really begins, and it's split between two teachers with, let's just say, very different philosophies. First, she's at the academy, training under a master named Corvus, and his whole thing is mastery of the body. It's all about control, about honing that wildness inside her. But then she goes to London society, under the ancient Lady Artemis, and her lesson is the complete opposite. It's not about honing the wildness, it's about mastering the mask. It's all about performance, learning how to hide that inner beast in plain sight.
So after spending years learning how to hide, how to wear the mask, Beatrice comes up with something, well, something radical. She says, okay, instead of just hiding in the cracks of human society, why don't we become an essential part of it? And she lays out this whole strategy. It's brilliant. The wolves, they'll move into government, become the face of power. The foxes, they'll shape the media, control the narrative. The rats, perfect for intelligence, gathering secrets. And the serpents can move silently through the world of finance. It's a plan to go from being hidden to being completely indispensable.
And that brings us to the last part of her story, and it's a lot more contemplative. After a whole lifetime of constant change, what does the world look like to her? Is there even such a thing as a final transformation?
So after decades of shaping the world from the shadows, she goes back. She returns to Mulberry Street. But the place she knew, it's just gone. The butcher shop is now a trendy coffee shop. Her entire past, the world that made her, has become a text that's been completely erased. It's a transformation that perfectly mirrors her own.
And in this new world, this increasingly digital world, she starts reflecting on the very foundation of her power, of her being, and she comes to this really powerful realization. The meat could not be entirely transcended. Even in our world of virtual reality and online identities, the physical body, the flesh, it's still absolutely essential.
And that brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to her mother's lesson. This entire incredible journey, from that butcher's shop all the way to the Council of Beasts, it's all been about learning to read and then rewrite the text of the body. So it really leaves us with just one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. If all flesh is text, what story does yours tell?